Are you? Hello and welcome to the Gooners Podcast. Oh, it always
It's our
throws
usual
me off.
our usual smooth entry.
It is. That's what she said. Hey, we're breaking ducks today.
We are breaking a
We have a
duck.
new guest, first-time guest.
We do. We have a first-time duck-breaking guest who I will introduce in just a second. But Andy, it is National Pineapple Day today. I just want to let you know that. I'm not even making it up. Hashtag National Pineapple Day is trending on Twitter. It is National Pineapple Day. It is not National Pineapple on Pizza Day, however. So there's that. But
Turkish, if someone comes to you and says, "Here's a free pizza with pineapple on it," do you eat it or do you throw it in their face and say, "This does not belong on pizza"?
I'm eating that.
Fuck.
I'm eating that.
All right, this has been the Gooners Podcast. No, I don't know, man. This is we're supposed to be an Arsenal podcast, but it turns out we're actually just a pizza podcast that occasionally discusses Arsenal. But in any event, let's move on. It is National Pineapple Day, though. Turkish, it is your first time on the pod. Thank you for coming on with us. Many people know you from your appearances on AFTV Media. I don't want to call it the wrong thing. You also do some of their studio-based shows that we've seen. So you're multimedia maven. Andy and I were having a debate, by the way, about you. Hopefully you can settle it. I said, Andy, the guy is, his ancestry clearly is from Turkey. And Andy swears to me you're either from Guatemala or New Zealand. So, Andy's kind of dumb. I don't know if you realize that, but can you settle this debate? Can you settle the debate for us? No, we're also going to have, if he gets home in time, we'll have Lee Judges. He may or may not be eating chicken and soup during the podcast, but if Judges joins us, great. But seriously, I told you before the show, Turkish, we officially met on Twitter this week, and in our very first contact, I broke one of my cardinal rules that I try not to break as much as possible, and I owe you an apology. So usually if I disagree with a concept or a sentiment from somebody that I don't really know that well, my goal is to debate it with them, to talk through it, to use reason and logic. And ultimately, if the person is being a twat, I will try to expose them as such. But I broke my rule because I went straight for the jugular and called one of your tweets.
We went backwards.
Yeah. 2 steps. Normally it's one step back and 5 steps, or 1 step forward and 2 steps back. We just started with the 2 steps back. But the good news is that reasonable people can take it private and work it out. And so I apologize for how I started off our wonderful relationship. But secondly, you're far from ignorant. I mean, which is the accusation. And I was really talking about a concept more than I was about you personally. But we'll get to that. Clearly from watching your videos and some of the background, you've been with Arsenal a long, long time. You were a student of the history of the game. Just right off the bat, I want to encourage anybody that, is interested that isn't already subscribed to your channel. Go ahead and do that because, you can back up what you talk about with experience. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Before we get started, I do want to mention that we are ramping up Gooners versus Cancer. It's our annual charitable cause, and this year is going to be the best year yet. I'm really excited already just from mentioning it, tweeting about it. We've already raised 15% of what we raised all last year, and we're getting a 2-month head start on when we started raising funds last year. So thank you to the people who have donated online. We haven't even ramped up any of our organized fundraisers yet. We got some great donations of exciting items coming from people who listen to the pod, people who you might know, and other people who are going to be giving items that we can bid on and raise a lot of money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. We have an outstanding new logo that our friend Lacazette on Twitter, not Alex Lacazette, but a real good artist did. And it's real exciting. And we all still got the American tour coming up where we're going to be talking about Gooners versus Cancer a lot. So if you haven't heard about it yet, please visit goonersversuscancer.com. You can donate funds. Doesn't matter how big, how small, if it's $1, £1, a Turkish lira, a shekel, doesn't matter. it all works, and it helps the cause, and it goes directly, not even through us, it goes directly to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, tax deductible for those of you who that applies to, I guess, here in the States. So enough about that. Appreciate it. And of course, you can also donate through Super Chats through the podcast if you want. There's that little emblem next to the smiley face in the chat. If you do that, every penny that we get from that goes to Gooners versus Cancer. We don't keep a dime of it. YouTube does, though. So if you're planning on being super generous, do it directly through the podcast, not through the chat window. And that takes care of that. Yes. So let's start off about talking about a pretty common theme of your channel's videos of late, a certain Enos Stanley Kroenke, the junior. I don't know if he's junior or not, but I want to make something clear about my views on Stan Kroenke, because it's been a little bit misinterpreted by a lot of the posts and the disagreements I've been getting into on Twitter. I don't like Stan Kroenke, okay? I don't think he's particularly good for Arsenal Football Club, to say the least. I think some of his personal politics and interests and the things that he has almost done in the past, talking about hunting channels, it's sickening. I think what he did to the city of St. Louis with their American football team was reprehensible. It's nuts that when you Google Stan Kroenke trophy hunting, you'd think it'd be an article about trying to win the FA Cup and the Champions League, but it's about elephants and antelope and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. So those are the trophies that he apparently likes. And I just don't like it. And worst of all is his completely detached approach towards Arsenal. So I'm with everybody that is Kroenke out in those regards. And I am not a supporter of his. The fact that I'm American has absolutely nothing to do with it. But what I also don't love is when people just absolutely go to the easiest possible narrative. And again, I'm not saying you specifically.
Yeah.
The easiest possible narrative of, spend some fucking money. That to me, it's a lazier way of doing it. So what I want to ask you is, and Andy, we'll go to you as well, because you have a pretty unique experience and viewpoint on Kroenke as well. But the banner, the tweet that ultimately I responded to pretty unpleasantly.
Yeah.
The capital letters are "spend some fucking money," and tell me, explain to me how where your feelings are about Stan Kroenke, and kind of give the background of summary of how you feel and about what.
This could be a while, but let's focus on the spend some fucking money, because you know what, I look back on that and I think to myself that I actually agree those are not the right words. If I could go back and change them, I would. It's just that I was on my way home from work, frustrated with everything. I thought, you know what? Why had the kit launches in a week? Why hasn't no one done anything yet? Why are we even going to like a protest or do something at the kit launch? Because it's the only opportunity we have as fans to voice any sort of opinion with media coverage before the season starts. So I was in my feelings. I was angry, and I just tweeted the first words that came out onto Twitter.
But isn't that interesting, though? I mean, that's kind of the narrative, though. I mean, you're far from the only person to say that about.
Yeah, 100%, because it is a narrative as well. It's been a narrative at Arsenal for a long time, a very long time. I'm sure you know how long it's been that we haven't spent like the other teams around us have been spending. But I've uploaded it on Instagram today as well, and I've changed it up. Not the banners, but the little A4 posters I've made so far. One of the things that it says Kroenke out on one of them, and on the other one it says show us you care or go. Because that's what I believe is the next step.
Where'd you get that suggestion from?
Whoa, it was a good one, isn't it? Obviously suggestions help. So obviously I asked a few people, you yourself as well. So we came to the conclusion that a message like that is probably a bit better. Also, we want our Arsenal back. That's another message, because that's what we want. And it's not necessarily about just spending money. Like when we further went into it, it's about his lack of interest over the last 10 years. It's about leaving Wenger and Gazidis in charge for so long without looking into matters. It was not only the fees that we couldn't match with the clubs around us. It was the players we were selling. We were selling our best players for a long time, getting fees that when you look back on, they're pretty ridiculous. We could have got 35 million for Cesc Fabregas, but we didn't. And that 22 million for Robin van Persie. But some of the fees, but it's not only that, because contracts have been run down. Forget Sanchez and Ozil, because before that, Walcott ran down his contract until January, and we had to give him them by playing him up front, giving him a captaincy for one game against Chelsea for his 100th appearance or something. So it's an accumulation of things. And yes, Wenger and Gazidis have only been gone a year, but I do not give Kroenke a clean slate. I gave Kroenke half this window to do something. And whether that's getting rid of the deadwood or getting in some players, one or the other, he's done neither. We've done neither. Raul and Vinay have done neither. And if I really go into them two as individuals as well, yes, I do like Raul, but Vinay is just another puppet. He's just another spokesman for Kroenke. He's a businessman, all about money. The club's best interest, the fans' best interests are not in his heart. And these are the people Kroenke is putting in charge. The Europa League final, he wasn't there. It's so many things. And I'm going to remember some more things as we do go, because I'm very passionate about it.
Well, we'll get to Josh, because Josh was there, and even if Stan wasn't, because maybe his pinstripe dry cleaning that suit that he wore to every FA Cup didn't make it in time. But in any event, and we'll talk about a lot of issues that may kind of break down what we can attribute to Stan directly and what maybe is a reach. Ultimately, the buck stops at the top, and I think everyone would agree with that. But I think different people would have a way of breaking it down differently. But Andy, living in Kroenke land, being a original North Londoner who knows the history of the club and the history of its ownership, what are your feelings on the Stan and the Kroenke family?
I agree a lot with what Turkish said. It's Stan being naive with how the business is being run and was run so poorly for so long. As a businessman, you would think him looking at the books, he could see that the green could have been a lot larger. So yeah, it's his misunderstanding of how the transfer market works, how we could have sold those players for a lot more money. I think that the fact that you have an American who is not fully into the club doesn't understand that, there is that extra sell-on value when you add that the player is English, right? These are things that he should have been guided on, and I think he handed over way too much responsibility to Arsene and Ivan, and Arsene was always that individual who never hiked up prices, but yet we got railed for years and years by overpaying and we're underselling. And so that's on Kroenke for not having seen the bigger picture. I have that different perspective because I unfortunately support two of his other clubs here with the Colorado Avalanche and Rapids, and I'm seeing what he's doing. Actually, sorry, I'm seeing what Josh is doing on the base level and turning these franchises and clubs around. And I think the best thing for us is to understand what their plan is for the club and who's actually running. Is it Stan or is it Josh? Because there's completely two different models if that's the case. I've said it before on the past, and Josh is going to run this as a team he supports, not as a business. And that's what we need. We need an owner like Abramovich who is going to say, I want to run this club to win trophies. The problem with that is if Stan's still in the picture and he's holding Josh's arm and saying you can't do that, then we have a problem, right? I do want to ask Turkish just one point. You brought up, and I'm not disagreeing with you in any manner, but you say, hey, you want to give us this window to get things done. Do we not think the removal of certain players and not extending certain contracts is kind of part of that? Because I truly believe under Arsene, we see certain players get renewed like Welbeck. I think there are certain players that he would have extended and continued to spend wasted money on. Are we not looking at, like, I look at this Kroenke regime and these new people and I go, okay, it's going to be more than one window. I think 2 to 3 windows, not just necessarily bringing in new, but getting rid of old. So I kind of look at that and I see that as a positive, that we are looking at certain players and saying, no, we're not going to extend because we are wasting money. So I look at that as a little bit of a positive rather than the negative,
Definitely. When I look at the last, let me say 18 months, let's take it back to when Wenger was let go.
Mm-hmm.
We were still in for a shout for Champions League football. So the way I looked at it was, hold on, Kroenke's made the decision to let Wenger go when we're still in for that Champions League money. If that's all he cares about, then surely he would have waited and saw before he made that decision. Maybe he's not happy with what's actually going on at the club. Maybe he thought, let me be proactive, get rid of the manager, and appease the fans a bit. Like bring down the in-house fighting and all the hoo-ha about Wenger out. So I looked at that as a positive. We moved on to the summer. I think we made a pretty good acquisition in Emery. He's got a pretty good history, a good level of manager. Ideally, I would have wanted a Simeone, maybe an Allegri, but they wouldn't have came for the budget that was on offer. Arteta even apparently turned it down. So them two definitely wouldn't have come for that budget. Emery's took on the job, and that's nothing against him because people do still use, but Emery knew what he was working with, so we have to judge him on that. No, because we also know that the tools he's been given is not sufficient to move us forward. So at that time, I saw all this as a positive. We acquired Emery. Our transfer budget was pretty low, but when I looked at the last year, we had spent 110 mil on Lacazette and Aubameyang. So I thought, and we also gave Ozil the bumper 350k contract. So I put that summer budget of about 50 mil down to what we'd done in the previous season, which was Gazidis and Wenger regime. Now we move.
Yeah, the Aubameyang signing was last summer. I mean, it happened in January, but that signing was made because we had an opportunity to get him and wasn't going to wait till the summer.
But do you think
100 mil outlay in the year? So that's what Emery walked into. We had already spent 100 mil as a club, so Emery walked into a transfer budget of 50 mil and whatever he can get from sales. He made good acquisitions. We've moved on to the season, and like you said, you just mentioned a good point. Us coming out in November and saying we're not extending Ramsey's contract, I was all for that because I didn't want another season of players taking the headlines. Will he stay? Won't he stay? We knew from November the contract was off. I thought, wow, another change in the habit of Arsenal that in the past 10 years. Move on to January now. I think it was January the 1st, the 0% investment report comes out. Us and Middlesbrough are the only teams that haven't had the pound investment from owners in the top 5 English leagues.
Glad you brought that up. All right.
Yeah, and it coincides with Sven Mislintat also rumored to be leaving or ending his contract because he's not happy with whatever it is. He's either not happy with Emery or he's even not happy with Kroenke and the budget. So this made me think, hold on, maybe things are not changing. It's unraveling again. We get told that we've got no transfer funds. Our wages is pretty effed up, so we can't sign anyone. We can only get a player in on loan. It's thinking of the old days again. We push on. End of the season comes. I've always said throughout the season, if people watch my interviews on AFTV, I wasn't Kroenke out this summer straight away. I was like, let's give him the half the window first, and let's see what actually happens. I was hoping at least Mickey or Mustafi would be out of this club by now. They're not. I was hoping that we'd at least sign one player by now. We haven't. Yes, Martinelli's walking around Oxford Circus, but how dare they? If they unveil Martinelli at the kit launch, I'm going to be even more angry over there. But they're taking the piss. An 18-year-old Brazilian playing in the lower leagues, you're going to go and really release him at the kit launch. Like, give me a break. So I actually agree that there has been some positive moments in the past year, but it's just thinking of the same old stuff again. And we won't have a kit launch for another 4 years. So I believe this is the perfect opportunity to impact the sponsor as well as Kroenke and get some coverage around it. That's just my view.
Let me jump in and ask you both a question really fast. So we talk about the 110 million spent on 2 strikers. If you were, now let's assume that at the time Arsene and Ivan are still running all operations and the Kroenkes are completely naive to what's happening, which is on them, right? But they've given the trust. Do you feel like Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, and I'm maybe going to go back to Conte because he was in management at Chelsea, and let's even go to Jose. If you look at those 4 managers and you gave them the current Arsenal squad and said, here's 55 million you can spend on a striker, I think all 4 of those managers would have turned around and said, well, hold on a second. I got problems in the back. I don't need another striker. We have Lacazette. We need to shore up what's behind us. So I put that completely on the fault of Arsene and Ivan because they were not looking at what we needed to fix right then and there. They were looking at another striker, which we didn't need. Great, we got him. Joint top goal scorer. At the end of the day, we would be in the fucking Champions League this season if we had invested that 55 million on another player or 2 defensively.
there's a lot of things that would have gotten us in the Champions League next season that didn't end up happening.
But that's part
I
of it,
agree
right?
with all that.
Oh, it sure
It's
is.
such a mismanagement.
It sure is.
Everything you just said that it was Wenger and Gazidis' fault. The 110 million, yes, is the operating money we create. It's not a direct investment from Kroenke, but Kroenke allowed them to spend it, which is fair. They misspent it, and at the same time gave Ozil a bumper contract that he's not worth, and then we acquired a manager that doesn't play with a number 10 or 2 strikers. But that's what we've done in the past year. So I agree with everything you've just said.
But it's on, and again, to me, it's on Arsene and Ivan, but it also is on the Kroenkes for being naive with not knowing where that money's going. If you're a business owner and someone says, "Hey, just need you to approve this 110 million or this 55 million on a striker," there should be some brain power that goes, "Well, why is Lacazette hurt? Like, what just happened with the 50 we spent on him?"
Yeah.
We're leaking goals here. So it's just that's my problem with the Kroenkes at this point. The fact they've allowed us to spend 110, excellent.
And that's where I come from in my recent Twitter battles with people and discussions that aren't necessarily battles. The personal investment angle, the spend some money angle, we need to be like everybody else who shows ambition angle. I don't think that those are genuine angles. I think those are whiny, entitled, childish things to say, and completely disregard the fact that there's a hierarchy and a structure at Arsenal, and the CEO of Arsenal, the head of Arsenal. You could argue that the CEO of Arsenal is the Raul or the Ivan and Wenger role, and that he simply is an owner. In his case, he chooses to be a passive owner who doesn't get tremendously involved because he had what he thought were reliable football men who would be able to make all the right decisions, and for many, many years did. And so again, what I blame Stan for in this is being so detached from the club's operations that he put 600% of his faith in Arsene Wenger, who has a long track record of rewarding that faith, dating back to 1996, and who had, and to Ivan Gazidis, and the problem is that he wasn't enough of a football man himself to be a student of what was going on around him with the finances of the game, with the other types of owners that were coming into the game, the American ownership, the Middle Eastern ownership. And by the time he finally came to recognize that we were decaying, which is when we stopped making the Champions League every single year, the hole was there. We had to dig out of a hole that's getting deeper rather than be able to prevent falling into the hole in the first place. That's on him. But he is the long-term owner. He owns 100% of the club. He and possibly his son Josh, who may end up having more influence on the day-to-day than Stan does, for sure, are in a position where they have an opportunity and the obligation to turn it around. And
100%.
And they're not going to do it by becoming Roman Abramovich and picking out all-star players on a list of who do I want today. They're going to rely on a team of people who have been installed for a year and a half at most, to help them do that. And so I do not that we have to apportion blame, but if we did, I'd say, Stan, show us you care. Josh, show us you're involved. We have made some mistakes, and that's a small cost. We have to now get out of it and move forward, not renewing contracts for people who are going to be distractions. That has to end by either selling them or re-inking them a year before, and they've said all the right things there. Ramsey should and was, and Welbeck should and was, hopefully the last of those. And this is going to be a multi-year process. 5 weeks of a transfer window where there's a lot going on. And granted, the earlier the better in the transfer window. They leave for the States in 10 days, and we know it's better to bed people in from the start. It's not ideal, but it's also not over yet. And I just think it's it may be a bit premature to be complaining about that. So Turkish, I want to hand it to you for your reaction. And I do want to kind of deep dive into some of those financial numbers because you brought up a couple things, and I'm going to try this screen sharing thing to see if I can pull it off because I have some exhibits I want to share and talk about a little bit.
While you're pulling that up, Mike, I just wonder if, say tomorrow, the Kroenkes came out and released a statement through the club that said, here's our plan. Like, we hear you're upset, we hear your voices, and here's what's happening. We were naive. We didn't really know what was going on. We left the club in hands, and a lot of money was spent the wrong way. Here's what we would like to do for the future. This is a rebuilding. You got to give us 2 to 3 years. We'll make a change. Does the fan base then take a step back and go, okay, all right? Or do we still tiki torch and headhunt? I'm just wondering, like, how does this all get fixed?
It was always going to take 2-3 years. Wenger was the battering ram for Gazidis and Kroenke. He was taking all the flack. We should have been on Kroenke's neck 5 years ago. But because of Wenger, this is Wenger's fault. At that time, he had a lot of the blame to take because he was telling us that the ticket prices are the highest in Europe because of the football on display. He was completely taking the piss out of us. And yes, he's done great things at the club, but at that time, he was really taking the piss. So we had to put the pressure on Wenger first because he was taking the flak for everything. He was supporting everything that we was upset about. So we had to put the pressure on him. In the end, whether it was the pressure, whether it was Kroenke realizing his naivety, change happened.
It was $50 million a year in lost revenues from the Champions League. That's what happened. I hate to rain on the parade of the people that protested and feel that they played a hand in it, but I really don't buy it.
But when you look into the numbers on top of that, after the first year of finishing out of the top 4, Wenger got a pay rise. That's Kroenke. Why would you give the man a pay rise? That's complete ignorance. So this is what makes me believe that, yes, it might be premature so soon after he's made the changes over the last year, but I personally haven't given him a clean slate because he's realized his mistakes. But I want him to work a lot more proactively because he's realized these mistakes, not come out with a statement saying, give us another 3-4 years. Be more proactive because we've needed to get rid of a whole bunch of players for a long time. And yes, some have run down their contracts. But like I said, how have we still got some of the players we've got this summer? I haven't seen anything from us coming or going. And the quality of player we're linked with, aside from Tierney, which would be a great addition.
Yeah.
He looks a great little player, good potential. I'd be happy with that. But Saliba, he's not for now. Martinelli, he's not for now. Schubert, he's not for now.
The total age of all the people we've been linked with is, when you total it all up, it's less than Lichtstein.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, Mike, and I've said it for years now on this. We are signing players that do not put us in the same caliber of Chelsea, Tottenham, right? I mean, they're the two teams right above us. We're miles away from being in the same running as.
But Tottenham didn't spend the money on those players either.
Oh no, but they invested correctly in their youth setup, and they identified players that they could say, like Christian Eriksen, they put money in. A lot of clubs would have spent the money on what's the Eric, whatever his last name is, I can't think of it. Yeah. But Chelsea spend a lot of money. United are a completely different animal because they spend money to sell shirts, not necessarily put football. And now their fans are pissed.
They also don't spend much money relative to their income.
So before you jump to your graphs, I would be and I'm probably in this by myself, but I would be comfortable if we just had one great signing, and for the next couple windows, that's the way it is, and not 5 or 6, not for now, as Turkish just said, because that doesn't help us acquire Champions League football or potentially win a league. It just puts us further away. It's such a frustrating process.
Exactly that, because Chelsea signed these sort of players and send them on loan for 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to sign them, and everyone's crying about we need them now. Yes, we need a defender now. But even if we kept Saliba this year and bringing an 18-year-old into the Premier League, you might kill him before he even starts. Senderos was a good young centre-back before he faced Drogba at a young age and got killed.
Yeah,
and that's the start of the end for him. Do you know what I mean? You can't do this with these 18-year-old players in this league. This league is too intense. It's too physical for that sort of player. And we've gone through the last 12 years. We've gone through that let's give a chance to youngsters phase. It didn't work out. We've gone through the British core phase. It didn't work out. This is why I started leaning so toward Usmanov. Yes, it wasn't ideal at first, but essentially that's what football has become. And we have fallen so far behind, and Tottenham and Liverpool have embarrassed us with their model. Embarrassed us. Wenger was selling us FFP is coming. He was selling us that we're saving money. We're going to be in a great position. We were the second richest club in the world the year before we moved into the Emirates. The second richest behind Real Madrid. We moved into the Emirates, and now we are fucked.
Well, that's another conversation altogether, because I feel strongly if we hadn't done that, we'd be even more fucked than we already are.
And I want to just pinpoint, Matt Walker was saying in the chat, we don't need big names, we need good players. I completely agree with that. I mean, I remember I had a to-do with Claude in a private chat group about John Stones, how Man City were more ambitious than us because they spent $50 million on Stones. This was probably 18 months ago, and I kept saying, it doesn't matter how much they spent. It has to be a good player. John Stones is probably not going to be at City in a season if he doesn't turn his shit around. So I don't care about the transfer fee. I care about the fact that we buy players who make us better. We could sign 6 young players. Guendouzi looks awesome. He's a not-for-now player. In 3 or 4 seasons from now, he's going to be a fucking world beater. That doesn't help us tomorrow, and we need to be helped tomorrow. So I love the fact that we're looking at Carrasco, Zaha. They are players who come in and make us a better team. And for everyone saying, well, no, we should be looking at Reece Nelson. No, this is what makes Reece Nelson a better player. You give him people he has to fight against week in and week out in training. That makes Arsenal a better team. And if he can't hack it, we ship him. If by January he's just not up to snuff, you send him out on loan. But we need to have depth and strength in numbers. And I would rather we spend, if we truly have 40 million, I would rather we spend 40 on either one player that makes us better, or 2 players that that's just me. Yeah.
So, a Duncan, a Frazier type of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so, and we could get into transfer, rumors and all that, but that's not really what the pod is about today. So, again, this is, I've been spending a lot of time in the last week or so kind of looking at numbers. I have a great deal of respect for what Swiss Ramble does on Twitter. The guy's a financial wizard.
Yeah.
We have tried to get him on the podcast. He says he doesn't do podcasts. Maybe someday we'll break through on it. So I did a little bit of Yank ramble.
Jewish ramble,
Yank ramble. I did all that. I'm going to try to do this screen share thing. I don't know if you can see this or not. This is the.
We both leaned in, which means no.
Yeah.
Mike,
when I'm talking, you can see this then?
If you're going to screen share it, lock it on your screen so then so it doesn't go to me and Turkish. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom into it a bit as well and scroll down as we see it. So
this is the
this is the same thing that happens with Mike's love life. Everyone has to zoom in.
All right. Yeah, I don't think I can make it any bigger here, but which is another thing that I say.
The magnifying glass in the bottom left.
I'm not seeing the same thing that you are on. I have a different module.
No. So you don't have that blue little circle
in the middle.
No, and I don't want to take 15 minutes of the podcast trying to figure it out. Anyway, this chart is what everybody's up in arms about, and the chart is basically having to do with the fact that Arsenal's got 100% of the green. Manchester City is 90% owner funded, according to this chart. Liverpool, 40% owner funded, according to this chart. But what some people aren't realizing about this chart is, first of all, they're saying it just shows that Kroenke hasn't put a dime into the club. Okay. This chart is from 2008 to 2017. It's a 10-year period of time that spans 3 eras. One era is pre-financial fair play and before Man City even was sold to the Qatari group, or the Emirates group. 2011 or 2000. Well, no, that was 2008 to 2013. Then the 2013 is when financial fair play really kicked in, and the rules changed a lot. Another thing that wasn't the case in 2008 was that Arsenal was not 100% owned by Stan Kroenke. Arsenal wasn't even 66% owned by Stan Kroenke yet. until about 2011. So, what was different about us than Manchester City, what was different about us than Manchester United with the Glazers ownership, which has its own issues, what was different about us than even Liverpool, who went from Hicks and Gillette to the FSG group, is the fact that we had no one that was 100% responsible and 100% liable and 100% going to benefit from the fruits of whatever was done to make changes. So, even as 66% owner of the club.
When did he become 66% owner? What year?
I think about April of 2011.
Yep.
I think that's when the shares from Bracewell Smith. I mean, I'm not the student of the history that you are, but I've done some research lately.
Yeah, Hillwood leaned on them. Hillwood is the first.
Right.
So Hillwood leaned on them to sell the shares. But yeah, sorry.
So ultimately, he became majority owner in 2011, 2012, and full owner less than a year ago. So when you own 66% of something, to put your own personal money from outside the company into the club, and receive only 66% of the advantages of that back is not as easy as you might think. A majority owner can make decisions, but if you make decisions where you're 100% liable and 66% beneficial of it, it's not that simple. The second thing that this doesn't show, again, this wasn't what was intended to show, is when this investment from owners happened. With Manchester City, and there's, let me see if I've got source of funds, Manchester City cash flow. If you look at these numbers here, right there, are you able to see my cursor?
Just about. Where is it? Yeah.
If you can't read the numbers because they're too small, it's basically saying each year, here's how much the owners threw in between loans and share capital, issuing new equity.
Yep.
From 2009 to 2013, which is when financial fair play really kicked in, $1 billion out of their $1.25 billion that the chart shows came in those years. So all of this red in Manchester City's area here was done between 2008 and 2013.
Yeah.
They took advantage smartly and legally of rules that didn't exist yet, saw the fact that they were coming, and made a tremendous amount of investment of their own money to prop up the revenues of the team by making them a perennial championship contender, champions, to try to win the Champions League, which they've still yet to do, and it's paid off. But from 2013 on, they've been virtually completely self-sustaining. Manchester City has been virtually completely self-sustaining. The amount of money that they've spent on players in the past 4 or 5 seasons is somewhere like 280 million net spend, and the amount that they've earned from revenues is something like 247. So Manchester City is not just, as large players as they have, they're doing that now because they're playing in a revenue field where the revenues are a lot higher because of what they did back in 2008. During those years, why didn't we think of that? Well, we didn't have one owner. Kroenke owned 9.9% of the club. We were paying off incredible amounts of stadium debt, having just made the improvements that needed to be made to infrastructure.
Kroenke went from 9.9% to 30% of, was it 33% or something like that, right?
Yeah, the 33%, the 29.9, which was the limit without having to make that was, I think, 2011 actually, and then I forget when he went to 60-something%, but
that's when he was the majority owner. Yeah.
So again, we were one of the only top 6 clubs at the time that had multiple owners, had owners that whose lineage traces back many generations through marriage and through otherwise. Nina Bracewell Smith, and again, I'm a little over my head when I talk about the detailed history of the ownership, but it is very fractured until Kroenke ended up taking over, for better or for worse. But to expect a lot of owner investment during that time when we never had it before is bad timing. When everyone was gearing up, when Man City was gearing up for financial fair play, when Chelsea was gearing up for financial fair play and spending their own money, we didn't have the ability to do that because we had just improved the infrastructure. Liverpool, and I'll wrap this all up together. Liverpool, 40% funded by ownership. Well, when did that happen? A lot of it happened with the previous ownership group. And then when FSG came into the club, they paid, well, the one thing that they did was paid off a lot of the debt that Hicks and Gillette had accrued to leverage the club, turned it into equity, and invested it in the infrastructure of the club. An increase in people that can come to Anfield, in seats, an improvement in the
business nows, basically. They've shown business nows. Man City showed business nows by completing all them deals before, and Liverpool have done the same there.
They showed both business nows and they also showed financial willingness to lay out tons more than they were getting back in the hopes that it would make for a better system later on, and it paid off. Liverpool did not do that. Liverpool spent money on infrastructure that we didn't need, since we spent the money on Emirates already, and had I almost said Carrington, had Colney and all those things, and so you can see here in this chart, the capital expenditures are 32%. Only 56% was going to player purchases. Guys, guess what? Liverpool has a self-sustaining model too.
Yep.
Their owners, especially the new owners, in the time where they've gone from being, missing Europe altogether to being where they are now on the verge of league champions and champions of Europe, they have spent less money on players than we have over the same 4 or 5 year period of time.
Yeah.
And so, again, here's 3 different areas. This is the before financial fair play, 03 to 07. These are the Chelsea years where Abramovich was just racking up near $1 billion of debt to buy every player that he wanted to have as his toy. Here's the pre-FFP years. This is Man City.
And
right
the red sections are never big.
The red section is Arsenal. In those years, this is where we were selling Van Persie. We were selling Adebayor. We were selling Fabregas. And frankly, we were selling a lot of those players to these guys. And here you have Chelsea still loading up on players, but starting to slow down.
Yeah.
Here's the financial fair play era. You got Manchester City going all the way from this huge pile to being about level with Manchester United, which is in purple.
Yeah.
And then you've got Chelsea in blue, Liverpool in gold. There's a little sliver for Tottenham in green in between us and Liverpool, which you can barely even see because, as we know, they've had almost no net spend for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then us at the top. Liverpool hasn't outspent us. Tottenham has underspent us. Chelsea has not outspent us. The difference is 100% in the management of the club, in the decisions that have been made, in the fact that we have had 30 players that we've signed for more than £1 million in the last 12 years and have let 17 of them go for free.
Yep.
And only 5 of them for a profit, the other 8 for a loss. It is insane, the mismanagement that has happened at the footballing level at Arsenal over the past 5 or 6 years. And I blame Kroenke for letting it happen for too long, but sometimes it takes years of seeing the final impact of your decisions to realize that it's too late. And for that, I blame him, and for that, I expect him to finally turn it around. And I have faith in Josh to do that. But it's like everyone just wants to forgive or overlook, or just has moved on because they're no longer with the club and have just decided to throw all their might at Stan Kroenke for not spending money. And it's just that Turkish is I think an ignorant and lazy approach to have. And I'm not saying that you have that.
No, I understand that.
Not at all. I'm just saying that's what riles me up, is because people just equate money and budgets and transfer kitties and all this stuff. And it isn't about that. It's about figuring out how to run.
It's partly about that. It's partly about that.
Fair.
Partly about that. Because we agree, we blame the last 4 and 5 years. The blame of Kroenke is because he was naive. He left people in charge that were inept and caused this melee that we're in right now. But the previous 5 years prior to that, so we're talking 2009 to 2014, Usmanov was 30% owner of this club, and he wouldn't allow him on the board. He wouldn't allow him because of a conflict of, it wasn't even interest, because how can how can it be a conflict of interest if Kroenke allows Usmanov onto the board and Usmanov pumps in 100 mil, 200 mil into the club? That's not out of Kroenke's pocket. We now go on to win the league or Champions League in the next 2 years. The profit, most of it goes to Kroenke because he's still a higher share owner than Usmanov. So them times he was very selfish and all about himself. So although I don't blame him entirely for the mismanagement that's happened to lead us to where we are now, he's the man has shown traits that I don't want associated to Arsenal Football Club anymore. Now Josh Kroenke is another. He's a completely separate argument.
Yeah, let's get to your views on Josh because.
So I just want to interject. This is where I disagree with Turkish. I completely blame Stan for 100% of this because any good CEO or owner of a business should know monthly, quarterly where their club is at and why there's failings. And so for me, as I said on the top, the naive nature of how he's run this club has been the problem because I mean
he bought what Arsene was selling hook, line, and sinker,
and he never he bought it hook, line, and sinker, and he kept getting fed bullshit after bullshit after bullshit, and we all did. Now, who's actually running this club at this point? Because I don't think it's Stan. I think it's Josh.
Tell us. That's all we want to know. We
exactly.
want to know what's going on at the club, and we wanted to know last year. Ideally, we didn't. A manager change wasn't going to be the be-all and end-all. It wasn't going to, if they thought it's going to flick all the fans' minds back onto Arsenal and full-on support, blind support, then no, it's not, because the patience is wearing thin because it's one mistake after the other from Kroenke. I do hold him 100% to blame. There's people under him to blame as well, Wenger and Gazidis, who he's left in charge. But again, he is 100% to blame because he makes these decisions. With Usmanov, he made the decision not to allow him on. That was prior to the 2014 and 2013. If he had more business, he's meant to be such a businessman. Same thing with Wenger. Everyone was telling me he done economics, he's this and that. Look what he done to our club. We are not a good business. Chelsea and Tottenham will have more fans than Arsenal in about 10 to 20 years because all these people growing up around London now, growing up around England now, if they're going to support a team in London, I'll be honest, it's not going to be Arsenal. And it hasn't been Arsenal for the past 8 to 10 years. Tottenham and Chelsea are gaining fans. Yes, they're not close to us yet. But if it continues going this way and they continue to put off hardcore supporters of the club like myself and like others who will stop going. I know so many older people that have stopped going. And they just talk to me online and say, like, enough. They had enough. But they don't have the energy to fight it. And do I think the protest is going to change anything? No. This protest on Monday will not change a damn thing. But hopefully we can build on it come Newcastle away. Because if nothing gets done or if the acquisitions and the sales that get done between kit launch and the first game of the season is not adequate enough, is not the name, like you said, in Carrasco or Zaha, then from game one next season, we have to put pressure on. I know it's not going to look good on the TV. I know people are going to say it's embarrassing us, but Arsenal Football Club have embarrassed themselves over the last 10 years. They've embarrassed me. Arsenal Football Club have embarrassed me. And some fans have the cheek to say, I'm embarrassing them.
I think that, in the past, we've seen protests that I think were completely driven out of, I'm going to lead this so I can get Twitter followers. I think Turkish, I listened to some of your YouTube videos yesterday, and I agree with you. There is no other time.
Andy was cramming for the final exam.
I love when you're like, what do I do? Just walk around London with a banner? Like, what do I do? So I completely agree. I think tomorrow or on Monday, it's the best possible time. And I think that you, instead of doing it for the reason of like, well, this is going to gain me followers, you're doing it for like, just be real with us. Like we want exposure. We want clarity.
I don't want to do this. I've never held a protest. I've never led a protest. I'm going to go there on Monday morning and learn as I go on what to do, because I haven't done it.
Do you have an idea of how many people are going? Like, what are you anticipating and expecting? I don't mean to pitch on.
I can't say for sure. Roughly, I'm going to say that a minimum of probably 40 to 50 people have confirmed. I'm not sure who else they're going to.
Are you going to the Armory?
Yeah, the roundabout opposite the Armory.
Yeah.
I plan to set up there. Ideally, I plan to set up there. My big banner didn't come in. It's not ready in time. but I'll have little A4, A3 posters. All I want to read.
Did you order the plane?
Pardon?
Did you order the airplane?
Unless the plane is taking me away from North London right now. Nah. Please, no. But yeah, like, I'm gonna learn as I go. It shouldn't. I keep on saying it shouldn't be me because I feel like other people are in better positions to do this. Because
well, be aware that you're gonna, and you don't need me to tell you this. You're probably gonna catch more flack than you will gain support, at least initially. If you believe strongly enough in it, I have never been, and this goes for the marches last year, one of which never formulated. I was standing there on Avenel Road or Gillespie Road, kind of waiting to see it as it went by, and it never happened. But that's Mark's fault. He can't organize shit. But even if I disagree with the protest, I don't disagree with the people having a right to do it and speaking their mind about it. I am all about.
I think there's a big difference too between Arson out and Kroenke out, because a lot of people, even towards the end of Arson's tenure, respected the man for everything he did and kind of got into that, like, well, I don't like what he's doing, but I don't.
No one can say at least honor what Kroenke did for the first 10 years he was here.
Right, exactly.
There is that concept. So I
want to add a point to what Turkish said earlier.
We got to go to user questions, and we're about to this podcast is about to become a lot less hairy.
There, a few years ago, just to his point about Chelsea and other teams overtaking us, there's a reason why Fly Emirates dropped Chelsea as a sponsor and went over to Arsenal, because our global brand was a lot bigger, and they pumped a lot of money into coming to us. Oh my God, it's Dobby. Like, we just don't want to fall into that position. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and like I said, like, you know what? I agree with you. And like I said, on Monday, I'm making sure everyone knows this is not about violence. This is not about causing a disturbance. This is about raising awareness, first and foremost. I want to go to the people that's queuing up in the kits, and I want to ask them, do you know where this money is going to? Why are you actually spending this money at Arsenal Football Club? Why don't you wait and see? I want to start raising awareness about it. I don't want to embarrass anyone. I don't want to embarrass the club. That's far from my agenda here. My agenda is bring Arsenal Football Club back. Like, I'll give all this up for Arsenal Football Club to be back. I don't want to lead a protest. I don't want a YouTube channel. I don't want to be flipping on Arsenal Fan TV every week. I want to enjoy football again. I want to enjoy and have hope and see my team show ambition. We have no divine right to win the league. 4 or 5 teams spend enough money to win that one Premier League trophy. We have no divine right. But as fans of one of the biggest brands in world football, we have the right for our club to show ambition by buying players, by fixing the mess that Wenger and Gazidis left us in structurally. In a year, we've lost one of the best scouts in Europe. So shit hasn't really changed, because in the last 5 weeks, we ain't done fuck all in the transfer window either. So me waiting I've been waiting a whole lot. Like I said before Lee came on, I watched AFTV for 4 years. I didn't go on it because Lee was saying exactly what Claude was saying, exactly what I would. Truth was saying exactly what I would. But in the end, we've all ended up coming on AFTV because it didn't seem like it's enough, and it's still not enough. We're still not unified. People are still telling me either wait or you're going to embarrass us, or I feel embarrassed anyway. I've been waiting anyway. Enough is enough.
So you should just go there. Just go there nude. I mean, if it's just about not caring about being embarrassed, then I mean, just go nude, and it'll be like, don't buy clothes.
That's it.
Don't buy kits. Just be nude. Speaking of nude, Lee, welcome to the podcast.
I don't want to scare anyone.
That's all right. I just put a big picture of Lee up, and everyone's scared now. So
I'm flying to Rome Monday afternoon. Ideally, this shouldn't be me. I'm gonna go protest in the morning and go fly to Rome Monday afternoon. This isn't what I want to wake up for.
And you're protesting Torreira not going to Milan?
That's another bollocks rumor. Just because he's unhappy with the English.
Let's not go down that path, because Lee. Yeah. I want Lee to get in a word. Lee, you joined us. How was your day?
How you doing, guys? All right.
Have you had your chicken?
No, I haven't. I've been up London on a afternoon tea on the Thames. Very nice, like.
Oh, look at
nice.
you!
How the bourgeois live.
I have never seen a guy go from one thing all the way to posh in a span of 1 year the way that Lee has. So just an absolutely
it's putting it on for a couple of hours.
It's a rags to riches story. The Lee Judges story. I want the option on the movie, but Lee, you've missed just about all of the podcast with the exception of some user questions, which I want to get in. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Unfortunately, we'll have to get your opinion on the Kroenke and financial issue. I did even some spreadsheets and some cool stuff earlier that would probably put everyone to sleep. We've got one person left watching, but in any case, some user questions if we can, and then we'll let our audience get back to the rest of what they're doing for today. From Mike in Virginia, always love this guy's questions; they're the best. If you could go back in time, Lee, and change just one thing that happened in Arsenal season, explain to me why you wouldn't just be better off using that power of time travel to go back and fuck Marilyn Monroe instead.
Well, I definitely have done that. You know what I mean? So,
we all love Arsenal here, the Arsenal, but I mean,
would
that be what you did with your time travel?
What on this season? Change something from this season?
Yeah, it was just it was a stupid question to So they're
always stupid questions with you. You know what I mean?
Stupid question. What isn't stupid is Mike Hernandez donating $9.99 for.
Do you know what? Just thinking about what I'd change in it. I'd change it if I could go back to time. I would like to go back to the game against Crystal Palace and Emery changed his team lineup from that day.
The one that we went to.
No, the one when we lost 3-2 at home. Just changed it because I still think that game. If we'd have won that game, we'd have got Champions League and maybe looking at different players. You know what I mean? So
that was the one that got away.
There's lots of there was lots of them. You know what I mean? You can go to certain games. You know what I mean? I'd like to go back to Aubameyang's missed penalty and say that put it the other way. But that would be. I still think that things. For me, the icing on the cake, or not the icing on the cake, was the day that they're now winning the coffin that we weren't getting Champions League football. That was that home game against Crystal Palace. Forget everything else. If we'd have won that game, I think we'd have gone on.
Absolutely. And again, just I want to thank Mike for Mike has been incredibly generous both through direct donations and his
so he's allowed to ask a stupid question then, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, he's given $9.99 for your appearance fee.
Well, then. I quite like Mike.
Here's the breakdown. Mike is fantastic. I've met him and we'll be seeing him again this summer. $10. YouTube gets 40% of that. Lee gets 58% of that, and Gooners versus Cancer will get 2 cents. No, 20 cents.
If we could just raise 1,999 more pounds, we have covered Lee's fee for this pod.
Yeah, Lee, is this what you're doing? I need to talk to you, mate.
Yeah, it's about donations, bro. Donations.
The Americans love the accent. Turkish, they love the accent.
Is that what it is? They have to come on more then.
Yeah, we got. You like talking to Randy, don't you?
Look at Andy's face here because he's half English. Look at him, look, because he hasn't got the accent.
I'm 100% English, Lee.
100%.
Sorry. Did I hit a nerve?
Yeah, little one.
All right, next question. We'll do this one for Turkish. From Dro the Gooner, who I've seen in the chat. I'm not sure if he's still in there, but thanks for joining us. What signing or type of signing would make you believe that the club is headed in the right direction? I don't know. I mean, you can give players as example if you want, but what would be, and to expand on our question before, something that you see happen? Let's say you protest Monday, you go to Rome Tuesday or Monday afternoon, and a week and a half later, we announce somebody. De Ligt's already off the market. And at what point do you say, okay, now I'm willing to wait and see this out? And you can't use the hindsight of seeing, how did it end up? What was the finish? Because, your feelings are based on actions, not the ability to look back on a year and say, oh, those decisions were right or wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Ideally, one signing that will make me think things are changing. I've got 3 or 4 players in mind, but 2 would be the wingers. Cengiz Ünder at Roma or Nicolas Pepe at Lille. Now, I know Nicolas Pepe is linked to some Champions League club, so that might not seem realistic. But Cengiz Ünder at Roma just sold Salah for 35 mil 3 years ago. You can get a Cengiz Ünder who hasn't performed to the level Salah has, but is a very good winger with great potential who's going to have massive sell-on value in 3 years. You can get him this summer.
You and Mems would purchase the entire stadium if they signed that guy, wouldn't you?
Listen. That's we can talk about Ozu is Turkish, but that guy is really Turkish.
It's Turkish AF.
But that Nicolas Pepe would be another one, or you know them two centre backs at RB Leipzig, Ibrahima Konate or Upamecano. One of them two. Them four would be a step in the right direction, and they're all realistic to me. They are all realistic this summer, but it's not going to happen.
All right. I have been sending out feelers, which sounds really disgusting, but I've been sending them out to try to get some ideas of things that can be donated, and we've gotten some that'll be raffled off for or auctioned off for Gooners versus Cancer. And for some people who may not necessarily have something tangible to provide, I've been getting some ideas on things that can be done. Andy and I will probably just be completely embarrassing ourselves over the course of the next few weeks for a good cause to raise money for charity. But we got a recommendation in the chat box from Matt Walker, which says, how much? Wait, I want to make sure I read it correctly. How much for Lee to read excerpts from 50 Shades of Grey?
Ooh.
Lee, I'm not going to ask you for a penny, but I'm going to ask you for maybe a couple hours of your time over the next couple of months, because I think we could just basically say, give us what you want Lee to talk about and try to pronounce, and we'll do it, and we'll make, we'll release it based on certain bids. If you would be so kind.
Not a problem. Not a problem.
That's a great idea. I'm marking that one down. Because there's if you know who Gilbert Gottfried is, there's like a famous tape of him reading 50 Shades of Grey, and it's like if you know Gilbert Gottfried's voice, I'm not going to try to do it. It's the funniest thing I've ever heard, and I think it might actually be eclipsed by Lee doing that. So thank you, Matt, for that idea.
I was going to say, if you haven't had a personal video or audio message of Lee calling you a wanker.
Oh my God!
It is.
Yeah, we got them for free, but I'm going to try to turn that into.
I can do them as well. I do them So
I'll give
personalized abusive message. There you go, So
just put together a paragraph with every Eastern European and Turkish footballer that you can think of, and then just have them pronounce them, and then end with anything. And I mean, we're gonna smash through $25,000 of charity this year. So great idea, Matt. I'm marking that one down. Next question is.
Can I just answer that question? What Turkish has done about signings?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll send it around.
Wilfried Zaha, that would do it for me.
Really,
that would do it for me, because I tell you what, it does it for me. It tells them we can go to a club not as big as us and take their best player. That's one. Two.
Second best player.
Well, second best player. I think Man United probably got there first.
Yeah.
But then also, what it's sending out is a message that we're going to get players that are Premiership ready, and I think that that's the case. I do believe that we need some younger players to build up there, but we need to bring in some Premiership players that are already know what the game is, so they can be up and running. And I think that's important this season, because I think last season we skinflinted and tried to do what we tried to do with certain players to get us to the Champions League. It didn't work. Now it's time to go big with a couple of Premiership stars.
Yeah, and I have been railing on that all summer. I all these fancy names, Titty, this guys that play for Leipzig. I mean, I would love that, but I'd much rather see a guy who has played in the Premier League for a couple of years. I mean, there are 23 to 26-year-old defenders who have played 2+ years in the Premier League that would suit us just fine. They're not 18-year-olds for the future, and they're not. They may be more expensive than their talent warrants because of the English premium or the Premier League premium. But fuck it, that's where we need to spend the money. And
if we bring in
Dunk or
I was gonna say, if we bring in Dunk, Tierney, and Fraser, we're a better team tomorrow than we were yesterday.
Yeah, we are.
And that gives us Premier League experience. It fits in our budget. They're not going to demand high wages, and then it gives us some depth. It makes us a better team than we were.
And then get rid of Mickey and Mustafi and fucking sort something else out in the squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right, Turkish. Get rid of those underperforming stars that have let us down over the last couple of years. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I ain't got no problem with any player being sold. Not any player from this current squad that played in that Europa League final and wilted. I haven't got no bugbear if any of them go. That's Torreira, Aubameyang, Lacazette, any of them. I've got no feelings to them whatsoever. But if Mustafi and Mkhitaryan were to go, then that's a start to bring in someone like Zaha. If you can say to me today, we can get rid of them two and we can get Zaha, I would be running up to the Emirates, pushing past Turkish and buying my Arsenal shirts on Monday. Like, you know what I mean? That's what I would be doing.
When you push past him, just make sure you don't touch the wrong part of his naked body.
That's what I would do, because it would send a proper message to this to the fan. You know, I still believe this. You know, I mean, I know we've got into it, but like Arsenal could have sent a message to the fans early doors what they was prepared to do, and basically have done nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and that is a big worry. And I agree. If I was a chairman or an owner that was passionate like from Arsenal, I'd be going to these guys now, flying over from wherever I am, going, what is going on? Where's all these? We've got to get the things done. You know, I get the fact that we may be waiting for someone to move, so that makes it happen. But when are Arsenal going to make something happen, guys? When are they going to make something happen? And that is the key. I want to see like Manchester, you know, Aaron, who plays for Crystal Palace, I can't say Wan-Bissaka, like I mean, Wan-Bissaka, two-Bissaka, whatever his name is, like, yeah. Right. Did Crystal Palace want to sell him? No, but he's been forced. You know what I mean? The players forced it because he's obviously gone there. But Manchester United have put the money in. Europa League club, by the way, Manchester United this season. Yeah. Bosh, done it. Got their man. You know what I mean? I want to see Arsenal do that. That's what we moved to the Emirates for, and we're still not doing it.
We have never done that. We have
always been reactive, not proactive.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's what I want to see. I want to see that. That's the message that I want to see from Arsenal.
All right, beautiful. We got about time for one more question, and I got to make it from David Ziegler, who puts in some outstanding questions every week. He sent about 15 more this week, and we're just gonna do a mailbag of David Ziegler questions because generally only 10% of them are about Arsenal or football. The other 90% are so we'll do a mailbag. But the one that I want to get into, it's actually a two-part question, and then we're going to end this. If you were on a pub quiz team, what 3 Arsenal players would you want, current players, on the other team? Either of you want to? Do you want me to go with mine first?
Would I want on the other team?
What Arsenal players would you want to be going against in a pub quiz competition? So this would not be a compliment to them. I can start if you want. I'm going to go with the first one is Kolasinac because it's that old Incredible Hulk thing where you just assume that he's maybe not too brushed up on the old trivia.
Speak a couple of languages, I might.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, and I'm a huge fan. I own a pair of his game worn or practice worn shorts, which smell fantastic. But that's a whole nother story. I also own a pair. I also own a pair of Lee's. So I mean, it's Lee Judges, that is. The second one would be Ozil because I think it would be 90% chance he wouldn't show up. And so I wouldn't have to worry about him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then the third one. Yeah, the third. I thought you might. The third one would be Bernd Leno because basically, if things get rough with the game, I could just stare at his new fiance all night. Because my goodness, Malone. I love that picture. But all right, so 3 players. Which one of you wants to take it? Only one of you have to go. If you can do it together if you want.
I'm going for the younger players. You're not going to know much.
It's actually funny. I just realized I didn't even think of this when the question was asked. The last time Arsenal came to the States, and Becca's in the audience, she can attest to this. they did this. They did a trivia game where 3 of the players were on each team, and then they had 3 American supporters on each team. I was lucky enough to be one of those supporters. So on the other team was a brand new signed Granit Xhaka, who didn't speak a word of English yet. Kieran Gibbs and Hector Bellerin. And then on our team, it was Gideon Zalem, of course, because he was the American on the team at the time.
Yeah.
Callum Chambers, maybe, and Chambo, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain.
All the young ones.
Yeah, we got the young ones. Chambo absolutely just fucked it for us. He didn't know anything, and we lost.
They're not interested.
We lost. I was pissed off, and so actually, I should just name those 3 guys. But it was a pretty cool experience. But yeah, so you're going with the young guys. Any specific people or
Guendouzi's not going to know much.
He just run around hugging people.
Yeah, he's not going to know much. Rob Holding's a young one that might know a bit though. He seems like a smart guy to me. But who else we got that's even young? Bellerin doesn't know much. Unless it's fashion-based questions.
Fashion-based questions. I don't know. I see him as being a bit of a renaissance man.
Yeah.
Lee, who are you picking for the other team? And then the second half of this question.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm going down the lines of Aubameyang. He can go on that side because, he's been sold a dream at Arsenal and he believed it. So he's gullible as anybody. So he can be one. So I'm thinking down those sort of lines that someone that believes that, that things are going to happen at Arsenal and that, so he could fog him off. Socrates, you know what I mean?
I don't know. Socrates sounds like, he'd be kind of like a philosopher type. I don't know why.
He'd done a question answer with Mavropoulos once. And he was useless, you know what I mean?
Dollar signs in this charity
I'm
thing, right?
Socrates.
All right, Socrates and Aubameyang.
I don't want to upset Kelechi if he's listening, but I'm thinking of Wobie as well. You know what I mean? So.
That's it, Leo done. That's it.
He'd stay at the pub until 3 a.m.
Yeah, he'd be on those silly little canisters when he you know what I mean, at a party. So. Yeah, you know what I mean? And he'd give all the right information, wouldn't he? You know what I mean? It's like when he's going towards the box, he'd give out all the right answers and then give you the complete wrong answer, wouldn't he? You know what I mean? So, yeah, a Wobie for me. There's my 3.
Okay, perfect. All right, and the second part of the question and the very end of it, thanks, Sebi, for showing up at the very end. The second part is, if you were on a pub quiz team, what 3 Arsenal podcasters, YouTubers, or other whatevers would you want on the other team? Present company excluded, so you can't.
Chloe's got to go straight on the other team, right? You know what I mean? Guaranteed, miserable sod. He's straight over.
I wouldn't be worried about him in a trivia contest.
Well, straight away, it's got. Do you know what? I reckon Ty would be quite knowledgeable about the Arsenal.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't about Arsenal. This is just a general pub quiz.
Claude would know a lot about the Arsenal, if I'll be honest. He would know, and he does know a lot about the Arsenal. But do you know what I mean? If you spilt your beer with Moan, if you've got a question wrong in Moan, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I feel the need to say again, this is not Arsenal trivia we're talking about. This is pub quiz, just general speaking. But your opponents are Arsenal bloggers or podcasters.
Mike.
Yeah.
I've got to go now,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, is that right if I just log out, yeah?
Yeah, go ahead. Turkish, where can we find you on Twitter?
Turkish LDN on Instagram, Twitter, and Turkish London TV on YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate the invite and all that, guys.
Hey, Turkish, have a nice holiday, yeah? I'll talk to you when you come back, yeah?
Nice one, yeah. We'll go for a drink.
See you, boys.
No worries.
Nice one,
we'll do it
let me know.
All right, man. So Turkish is logging out. We're just finishing up our last question, which is, if you were on a pub quiz team, what 3 Arsenal podcasters, YouTubers, or whatever's would you want on the other team?
I think I'm going to have to go Andy because he don't like me, I don't like him, and I don't think he's that good anyway. So
you're talking about I haven't heard Gixer's podcast.
Yeah, we haven't heard that one.
Dick.
It says present company excluded.
Oh,
so you can't use Andy. So you've put Claude on the other team.
I put Claude on the other team.
I love that guy.
That's really hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm going to be
The other
honest.
team would just be Claude.
I don't think Troops knows too much about life.
Life.
Not life. I was waiting to see where you went with that.
He just goes through it casually.
All right. No, I can't
He
say
can
I
go
just-
on the other side.
And your third member.
It's got to be Was as well, like, because if
I didn't even think
it was. I'll tell you what, like, I mean, he'd be doing your nutting about Emery, so he's gone on the other side as well, like, you know what I mean. So there's my three, like,
God, that's fantastic. I didn't even think of that one. Andy, I'll give you a second to think about it. My three, first one would be Frimpong, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. I don't know the guy very well, if at all. I have no reason to think the guy isn't brilliant, and I find him hilarious. It's just that anytime he buzzes in for an answer, he would just start screaming, and the TV would be shaking, and it would be like, or the cell phone would be shaking, and he'd probably just get disqualified. So he would be one. Second, I'm also going to go with Troops. And again, it's not about his intelligence, like you said.
No.
It's about his attitude towards the trivia contest. I mean, I could just see him like on his fifth spliff, just buzzing in. Every time the question's asked, he'll buzz in, and then he'll be like, "I don't give a fuck, you side man." So yeah, I would pick him. And then the third one, it is about intelligence. Yeah, I mean, the guy would like answer every question about 19th century art and geography by explaining how positive he already is. How many subscribers and views he has, how mentally stronger he is than other people, and those things don't help you in pub trivia, So that would be my third. Andy, who's your?
Who's the third?
I don't know.
You read between the lines, Lee.
Oh God, blimey, not again like that,
Yeah, Mike needs to.
I didn't say anything. You have no idea who I'm talking about. I'm being very cryptic.
First and foremost, I'd like to say England women are up already 1-0, 2 minutes into the match. Excellent. Okay. Second, Lee Judges, I love you. I don't know why you think anything different. So here's my pub trivia team. Waz' absolute best shot of the night.
I can't believe I think of that.
Kid's a cunt. Second one I'm going to pick is Tom Canton, because every question he's going to answer somehow Spanish, and it's just going to be how great Spain is. So I'm going to put him on the team with Waz, and I think the two of them will just kill each other. So really, it's just going to fall down to the third person. And man, I'm really struggling to think who that would be. You know what? I'll go. I don't know him, but I'm gonna just stick with you two. I'll go with Troops as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would pay to see that. I mean, we might have to actually try that this summer.
I think also, if Craig's got to be one that you could.
Yeah, I was gonna say Craig would be a good one too.
Mentally get in. I think you could mentally get into him. You know what I mean? And he could go all,
Once his phone just stops working, he'll just plummet and crash.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be about it. A quick apology for the camera work the second half of the pod. For some reason that thing happened again where only I had to physically and manually control it, and I didn't do a great job of it. So if you had to look at me just picking my teeth while other people were talking, you're welcome. Thanks to the chat for coming in. Mike Hernandez, thanks for the super chat. Goes to Gooners versus Cancer, Becca Rhodes. Sebi's in here, 95 Winston, Ryan Fletcher, Arsenal Fan Circle channel, Matt Walker, Alonzo Spencer, Don One, who's come in and not necessarily said things I agree with, but I appreciate you joining us. John Snow has nothing to do now that show is over, that stupid show. And Nilesh, everyone, Ryan Koss, everybody else that joined us today. Appreciate it. Had a great time. Lee, thanks for spending 25 minutes with us.
No problems, not so. Sorry I couldn't get in here earlier, So.
No, that's all good. You warned me. Andy, it's always lovely to see your face. It's even lovelier not to. but a couple of weeks, I will be sneaking down into your basement.
I was about to say, where are you staying now that all these rude comments are coming in?
staying in your basement.
Yeah. So what you got? What's the American on the American side? Are they going to be buying all the shirts and everything like that? What's the deal over in America?
Yeah, they'll be buying everything. It's weird because they've released the shirts at Dick's Sporting Goods at multiple stores across the country early. But yeah, they'll all be buying the shirts, and I'm sure Adidas will have everything set up throughout the summer.
If anybody's looking for protests, I mean, you might hear one thing or another, but it's unlikely, and it is what it is. It's unlikely to be a negative atmosphere this summer when they come.
I will tell you this though, Kroenke has no love in Denver.
Yeah, so when you got your games, because obviously I won't be out there, but like you guys will be. You feel that it'll all be positive over there?
Yeah, in Denver specifically, it won't be a Kroenke happy city because they dislike him here for not just Arsenal but everything else. But yeah, I think it's going to be positive. I think for a lot of the Arsenal supporters, it's the first time they get to see Arsenal, so this will be. Maybe we should do a protest against the "What do you think of Tottenham" chant because that's all the Americans seem to know, and so that's all they sing the whole match. So maybe
2016, I actually started feeling. I mean, getting angry when I started because everyone wanted to be the one that started that chant. In 2014, it was fun. 2016, it was just.
But I think it'll be positively just because it's the first time most of these people are going to get to see Arsenal, and they want to enjoy it, and not get caught up in all that. But I think you said it the other day. If by the summer, by the tour, if they haven't put people on the squad, new players, then I'm going to get frustrated. I'm going to be
if they want the narrative of the hubbub at the pubs and in the parking lot to be about what we weren't doing instead of what we are doing. Then by all means keep doing what they're doing. But I have a feeling they're not going to want that narrative on the tour. They're going to.
What you guys want to do is when you're out there, you want to just go around interviewing a few Americans so you can sort of get some sort of feedback what the atmosphere is like over there.
Your lot's going to be doing that plenty. You'll probably see more interviews with me and Robbie and Troops for
but like you do want to get because you want to gauge it from a English fan that goes to games. You want to gauge what the international fan, should I say that? I think what I mean. What they're feeling as well, because it without no disrespect to what I'm saying is that you view it differently to us. You know what I mean? Like you're still getting up at silly o'clock and doing all that sort of stuff, but. It'd be very interesting to see, what the feelings are from the overseas fans because they are important. And
giving this podcast advice.
No,
what do we think about that?
I'm very interested to see what the foreign fan feels about Arsenal Football Club. I really do. I'm really interested in it, So, and if they feel the same frustrations that I do and fellow Arsenal fans.
You're talking to a foreign fan right now. You just never asked me how I feel. So, all right, no, that's a good point. We will be putting a lot of content together over the summer. Definitely some in-person content with Andy and I together, or Andy and me together, which should be fun for one of us. But in general, it's going to be an interesting summer, one way or the other. Looking forward to finding out what happens. Thank you to our listeners, to our users, to our beloved Becca. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon. And please visit goonersversuscancer.com. Soon you will be able to bid thousands and thousands of pounds on getting Lee Judges to wish you a Merry Hanukkah and pronounce all the people in the Bible's names incorrectly, and it'll be fun. So with that said, have a great week, fellas. Enjoy the kit launch. We'll be looking forward to hearing how Turkish's protest goes and then how his trip to Rome goes, because we're all on Tinder hooks waiting for that. All right, have a great week, guys. Come on, you Gooners.